This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 449. I'm Brandon Schultz, and I am joined by my good buddy, Adam Emmert. Adam, it's been a few days. It still feels gross to me.
Yeah, been a few days, and guess what? I feel 0% better about what happened last Sunday, and still an extremely frustrating loss, and especially the way that the loss unfolded, and then again just to lose in overtime at the end of it in kind of heartbreaking fashion when you thought you might steal one you didn't deserve, because make no mistake about it, after that football game, the Seahawks did not deserve to win, whether or not they came away in overtime with the victory or not.
I mean, when you turn it over 3 times, it does make you feel that way, but they also got their share of turnovers, and so it did even it out. I feel like the team that wins tends to deserve it, whether it feels that way internally or not. I just think that, one of the things I'm curious to get your thoughts on is after we watched, it was Monday Night Football, right, where the Chiefs went into overtime.
I don't know. I did not watch that game, so I can't speak to it.
Well, the Bucs scored at the end of the game and had the opportunity in the rain to go for 2, and they passed it up. And I know it's a little bit different, Tampa versus the Mahomes versus, Geno Smith and the Seahawks versus Stafford. But it almost made me think, why didn't we just go for 2? If you're going to take it first in overtime, mm-hmm. Why not just roll the dice on one play and end it there than thinking that because it almost seems like with the way it happened at the end of that game, it was touchdown or bust, unless you get into a situation where it's like 4th and forever and it just makes all the sense to kick the field goal. Instead, we got to the point to where, yes, they're in range. It makes sense to go for it on 4th down, to keep it going, go for the win. They fail. You would have had it from the 2-yard line to just punch it in and try and end the game on one play in regulation.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things there. I think just kind of a theory that coaches run with and have run with for the entire time that I've been watching football and you've been watching football is that when at home, you go for the tie, get it to overtime, and go, into extra innings. Now, if you are on the road, and especially if you're a big underdog, then you go for 2 in that situation. I think really probably the foundational thought about not going for 2 there is that the defense was holding the Rams to 3 and outs for the majority of, the fourth quarter and beyond. So I think if you're Mike McDonald, you're thinking to yourself, okay, we score here, we get to OT, and we'll, take the ball if we get it. And, then the defense will be able to do their part as they've done all afternoon. And then they fell apart, obviously, in overtime. So you're banking on that the defense has played way better throughout this game than the offense, which has been pretty dismal.
Well, if that's part of your thinking, then winning the coin toss, why wouldn't you choose to go on defense then and try and limit them? Because one of the things we heard from Coach Mike after the game is that they got to the point where they were, and then they knew that if they kicked the field goal, then it was going to put the Rams into 4-down territory. There's not a whole lot of time left in the game, so say they drive down the field, even if they kick the field goal at the end of the game, then you're in a tie situation. We know how ties feel like, that you don't want that necessarily. And they're in 4-down territory to try and score a touchdown. So if that's part of the thinking, then why not throw your team out on defense if they are playing as well as you felt like they were?
I think this is a great point. So one of the things about the new overtime rules that I think we're all getting adjusted to over the last couple of years here is, traditionally speaking, it was sudden death, right? You take the ball and whoever scored first, then you win. So that's the normal mindset that you have in the bias that you've created in your own mind just over the years. Whereas I think now in almost every situation, unless my defense was completely unproductive and couldn't stop, a cold, then I think you kick the ball away in overtime, because if you can just get a stop, now all you need is a field goal and it's a win. And I think that the odds of that happening are relatively high if your defense is okay. Plus, it, like you put it very well, it takes the part of the opposing offense being in 4-down mindset on their return drive down the field after you've had the ball, and if you do kick the field goal. And I think there's something to that. I think overall, strategy wise, I think that kicking the ball away in overtime is probably a better play overall. And again, it depends on the team and the situation and the day, but just as a whole, that's kind of my gut feel on it.
No, if you feel like it's a better than majority chance that your defense is going to be able to make a stop, whether it's a stop for a field goal or just a stop on 4th down to have them punt the ball back to you, then yeah. And in past years of defense, I would say absolutely not. You want your offense out there because you want to drive down and score the touchdown.
Yeah. Well, and especially on Sunday, right, where the defense was clearly the stronger unit out there and had played well late in the game up to that point and then given us a chance to at least get to overtime. Going back to the 2-point conversation a little bit, I think the other reason why you don't go for 2 there is that the Seahawks had been an abject disaster in the red zone the entire game. So why would you be good suddenly when you needed it the most?
Well, we also had 2 chances to get 1 yard in overtime too, and came up short on that. So yeah, no, I'm less concerned about the idea of going for 2 than I more wanted to take it to that area of whether you wanted to kick the ball off or receive it in that scenario. So, but I wanted to look at the whole picture, and just because you don't get into these situations all the time. So, and especially on a day where majority of times I would say based on this offense, you want the ball because you got DK Metcalf, you got Kenneth Walker, you got Geno. Normally those guys are pretty good. Offensive line, though, not so good.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got great skill and perimeter players, and then you have nobody up front, with even Charles Cross having a difficult game throughout the day. And I think the poor play, especially from the right side, is really bleeding all the way over now to even Cross, in making it just difficult for him as well. And on one of his sacks that he gave up in pass protection, I don't know if he gave up more than one, but on the one sack anyways, he gets bulldozed fairly decently by Verse. And then our backup running back, who can run for 1.5 yards in a cloud of dust, but is in there because he's just an amazing pass blocker, completely whiffs on the pass block, and then Geno gets sacked. It's a disaster up front, Brandon. And as I went back and watched the game, I'm always looking, I'm like, okay, so my gut was like, offensive line was terrible. Geno had a really bad day, and the offense was trash. But there's probably other things in here that we're going to look at that you can point to and be like, you know what, maybe not so much at the offensive line. It's a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that and all that. Nope. You go back and watch this game, and the number one problem, without question, and it cannot be debated, was the offensive line, and just how dumpster fire doesn't even begin to describe it.
Well, I think after the game, it was the 1B, and I think you had Geno more at 1A.
I did.
And so did you flip-flop that?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't. And I mean, you can't have one without the other, right? Maybe it should be flip-flop, because really, at the end of the day, again, I don't care if you put Patrick freaking Mahomes back there against a Rams defense that's blowing through your offensive line in that way. They're going to look bad. Like, there's a reason why the Chiefs go out and spend a bunch of money on their offensive line and draft capital and all that stuff, because if your franchise quarterback is going to be great, like, he needs just a modicum of protection up front. And Geno isn't even getting that. But with that said, especially the second interception, like, it just can't happen. Like, you have to dirt it. And, the third one, like, okay, like, yeah, trying to get it up over to Barner and all that. But again, like, his back and his nameplate is to you the entire time. And he's obviously being held, but maybe you're looking at the oncoming guy that was, a free
right
rusher.
In your face, yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't quite as bad. And then honestly, the first one, that's all JSN. I'm dead serious. He had an awesome game. Awesome game. He had one terrible play, and it was that third down non-catch that turned into the pick. And he attacks the ball kind of sideways with his body. And instead of turning his hands so his thumbs are facing one another and then getting his hands up in front of his face and catching the ball as any professional wide receiver does that's worth his salt, he takes his pinkies and turns them towards each other so his palms are facing him and tries to trap it against his body. And I heard a couple of people say, oh, that thing was coming in hot. Couldn't care less. That you have to catch that. And it wasn't even that hot. Like, it was a solid throw, but it's not like it was on him in a half a tick. So Geno up and down a little bit, also didn't get some help throughout that as well.
Well, having your hands facing toward you and your body is how that happens.
Yes.
Like, if you're trying to catch it appropriately as a wide receiver, then it doesn't bounce off your chest into the opposition.
That's exactly right. And look, you're having a hard time overcoming mistakes as it was as an offense in the first half, and that didn't help. And, you go to that first half with the offensive line, and we mentioned it in the post game, and boy, you go back and watch it, and Connor Williams has to be gone. Like, just never again. Never again.
I went back, and because that was one of the things that we talked about post game too, was the idea of, well, Connor, he has a history of having bad snaps in Miami. I looked at his fumble numbers. 0 fumbles. The dude has 0 fumbles over his career until this year. So if they were errant or bad, they weren't that bad. And he has multiple fumbles now that you can attribute directly to him. I do want to go back, though, as I want to leave JSN on a positive note.
Yeah.
That's how I thought we were going to use Jackson Smith and Jigba when we drafted him. A downfield receiver, a dude over the middle, intermediate routes, long routes, not the little dump off, passes or bubble screens. This is how I wanted to see him used. And I'm glad that we got that. We finally got there. He did have the one nice screen. It might have been the play before the pick that bounced off his. That was the very first reception of his in the game, I think.
Right. And he broke that and broke a couple tackles and looked more elusive and faster than he has his entire career in Seattle to this point. And again, it's using your players to their strengths. And we got frustrated with Waldron and the way that he bubbled the death out of JSN. And we'd been becoming frustrated with Grubb with that same sort of usage pattern. We'll see if he learns here. Ryan Grubb. He's a slow learner or stubborn. One way or the other, I don't know, because as bad as the offensive line is, and I've heard a lot of people be like, well, what's he supposed to do? He's got a bad offensive line. Well, what you're supposed to do is play to the strengths of your players. Jackson Smith and Jigma is an excellent example on the perimeter that's easier to see. But when it comes to the offensive line and its play, the philosophy is completely broken in doing whatever you can to help your offensive line.
And that's kind of what I'm curious about too, is how can this offensive line be helped? And I don't know if sitting back in shotgun for the majority of plays is necessarily the way you help an offensive line. It helps Geno, right? Because then he can see where the pressure is coming from. He can get rid of it. But does it ultimately help your offensive line? That's a question I don't know if we completely have an answer for.
Oh, yes, we do. We completely have an answer for that. This is football 101 when it comes to this league. Not college, but this league. And getting under center is a massive advantage for offensive linemen. Before we hopped on, Brandon, we chatted a little bit about Mark Schlereth and his interview with Wyman and Bob and all the nuggets in that interview. And as he's speaking, I'm just sitting there yelling at my iPad, yes, 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 because he's saying everything that I totally believe in terms of offensive philosophy. And he talked about getting under center and what that does for an offensive line. And it's a massive deal.
Why does being under center matter? Well, being under center matters because when I'm under center and we run a play-action play, you know what linebackers have to do? They have to step up. Linebackers in shotgun, one, they can see the backfield much cleaner than you can when you're under center. When you're under center, you turn your back to the defense when you're running a play-action. Shotgun, you don't. So the ball never truly gets hidden. And then in shotgun, defenses tend to play high to low, meaning they get deeper drops and take away intermediate routes. When you're playing under center, linebackers tend to play about a yard closer to the ball, and then when you flag that ball and you turn your back to the defense, they can't help but step up. Same with safeties. And so you create a bigger space between the linebackers, the second, the underneath coverage and the deep coverage. And so it creates easier throwing windows and quicker throws, which in turn, the complementary nature of football, in turn helps us up front. And so all that stuff, to me would help you be a better group up front. But again, when you're playing shotgun 80% of the time, to me, that just doesn't help us.
And that's Mark Schlereth, 710 Seattle Sports, and like you mentioned, Wyman and Bob. I understand the philosophy of it all, Adam. The part that makes me nervous, though, is one, him saying that the linebackers are going to be closer to the line of scrimmage, and then Geno is also going to be closer to those defensive linemen that just seem to run by our offensive linemen like traffic cones. It makes me nervous.
So the part of it that he didn't talk about, he talked a lot about the linebackers and how that does freeze them, make them take a step forward, makes the entire defense play a little bit more up on everything and everybody. But what he didn't touch on is what it specifically does for the offensive lineman with the defensive lineman. So when you're under center and you're running play action, so the second the ball snaps and the quarterback starts moving towards the running back and turns his back, you really don't have a solid idea, unless there's some obvious tells and keys that they've been studying and stuff all week. You don't know if it's coming downhill right at your throat, right down your throat, or if it's going to be play action pass. And then not only that, but a quick play action pass, because you have sucked up the linebackers. Now there's open space. The quarterback can just step and fire and away you go. So that really does help the offensive linemen so that they are not closer to Geno in a hurry, because it takes a little starch out of the pass rush. You have to play. You're a defensive lineman. You play the run and the pass differently in terms of what your goals are on that play, whether that's anchoring a certain gap or, not getting blown back and things like that, rather than just trying to get upfield to the landmark as fast as possible. And you put all that into concert, and you really help the offensive lineman. And not only that, but to make it look the same, whether you're running or passing from being under center and running play action, your offensive linemen have to fire off the ball as if it's a run play every single time. So they're playing downhill. They're playing with aggression. They're taking the fight to the defensive lineman and taking the initiative. Whereas when you're in the shotgun, you're sitting back and holding on for dear life. And that's what's driving me absolutely insane with this offense. And Schlereth said something about 80% in the shotgun. I don't know what the number is, Brandon, but that's insane.
Well, it's one of the highest in the league. And then, take into account, too, that defensive players, they worry less about the run out of shotgun because teams generally out of shotgun pass the football. And so it's like at a rate above 70% generally. And so if only 30% of you has to worry about a potential run, and not only that, the potential run is not even going to be coming downhill as fast because it's just the quarterback either handing the ball straight. There could be running out of the pistol, and the running back could be going downhill that way. Not a lot of pistol formation by the Seahawks. A little bit more in the Bills game, not so much in this one. And I have to wonder if it has to do, Adam, with both those errant snaps by Connor Williams came when the Seahawks were in pistol formation against the Bills. And because like you said, if you're running a run play, you're firing into the defense. If he can't get that snap down to where, because he's trying to snap and then move forward as a run blocker, I wonder if that then leads to leaning just enough to where it makes the ball go over Geno's head. It's a problem because as a professional center, you should be able to account for that. But they also went from, I think, 8 pistol formation snaps against the Bills down to 2 against the Rams.
Interesting. And maybe pistol is the happy medium between, shotgun pass happy grub and, Marty Schottenheimer ball. I mean,
and when I say pistol formation for people that, because I know it can be kind of confusing, that's when the running back lines up about 4 or 5 yards behind the quarterback instead of lining up next to the quarterback. And it just allows them then to come downhill to receive the handoff rather than just straight handoff next one.
Yeah, so under center, the quarterback gets right there, puts his hands right up on the center's butt, and they have a very personal relationship in that formation. Shotgun, the quarterback is at the same depth as the running back, and that's kind of the difference there. Look, I played center when I played football, Brandon, okay? You know what your number one job is as a center? I think you could probably guess. Get the ball to the quarterback every single time. If you get dump trucked after that, then so freaking be it. But you cannot be trying to, execute your block before you get the ball to the quarterback. First, you got to make the line calls. Then you got to make sure you get the ball to the quarterback and secure that football. And then thirdly, it's then execute your block. So, look, when you've become a professional football player and are a center, like the idea that you'd have more than one YOLO snap a year is, I don't know how that happens.
I don't know either. I also noticed how you say Schlereth, and maybe I'm the one saying it wrong, but I like the way that you say it.
Is it not Schlereth? I thought that's how he liked it.
I don't know. I guess we could just call him Stink, his nickname.
Stink's fine. Yeah.
And then we avoid any kind of confusion with his last name.
There you go. Yeah. Maybe it's a dealer's choice on the pronunciation. Who knows?
So he was talking about why being under center matters. And I want to get to more of his quotes, but I went back into the NFL film room, which is really cool. It allows you to sort the number of plays, whether it's by formation. You can sort by which players on the field at any given time. Very cool tool at NFL.com now. And I wanted to see how many plays were under center, particularly in the game against the Rams. And at first when I did the filter, it was just, total plays under center for both teams. And 46 was the number that came out. I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I thought, okay, well, I got to filter this down to when Geno's on the field versus when Stafford's on the field so I can get the Seahawks number. The number for the Seahawks, Adam, 6.
Whoa.
The Rams were under center 40 times compared to 6 for the Seahawks.
Holy smokes. That's unbelievable. What a huge disparity, and especially between a guy running an offense who's new to it and a guy running an offense that, I think most people in the league think he's the best going, if not one of his underlings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a team that has a veteran quarterback with good perimeter players, a decent running back, and a young and unstable offensive line.
Right.
And so what does he do? He plays to their strengths. One of my favorite quotes from that entire Stink interview was, show me a team who gives up 7 sacks at home And I'll show you an offensive coordinator that doesn't understand what the problems are.
You show me a team that gives up 7 sacks, I'll show you a team that has a coordinator that doesn't understand what the problems are up front. You got to give me the tools to have success. If you just ask me to drop back and we're going to throw a drop back game, or we're going to be in shotgun and the majority of the time, I mean, Seattle is one of the heaviest shotgun teams in the league. Like, if you're just going to do that, you're taking a tool away from me.
Heaviest shotgun teams in the league, and it's not particularly close when you compare them to their opponents. 40-6 was the disparity against the Rams. Against Buffalo, it was 26-6. The number of runs under center, or the number of plays under center, were 26 for the Bills to 6 for the Seahawks. The only game in the last 5, and this was the game that the Seahawks won, where they were under center more than their opponent, was against the Falcons. The Seahawks under center 13 times to Atlanta's 4. 49ers, 27 snaps under center for the Niners compared to 10 for the Seahawks. Still, it's like a 3-1 disparity in most of these games, if not more. Giants, also a 3-1 disparity. They were under center 23 times to Seahawks 8, and Detroit was 32-13. So the most in the last 5 games, and the Seahawks did it twice, that they were under center 13 times, Atlanta and Detroit.
Is Geno Smith a quarterback that can get under the center and run an NFL offense?
I don't know. Does this coaching staff not have the confidence in him that he can run an offense under center? Because I look at all these other quarterbacks and I go, well, Geno's got to be as good as Jared Goff under center. He's got to be as good as Daniel freaking Jones. Like, yeah. If they have enough confidence to put Daniel Jones under center behind that, the Giants' offensive line hasn't been great historically either.
No, it hasn't. Look, if you've been in the league for longer than 5 years at the quarterback position, you can get under center and function effectively. You're not in the league if you can't do it.
Right.
The only excuse that is warranted for the type of shotgun to under center ratio that we have going on here would be if you have Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, or name any young QB that's come into the league over the last 6 to 7 years, coming out of the rinky-dink, hokey, BS college offenses where they sit in shotgun the entire time and don't have the time to practice being under center and being able to do that right. Do I think it's impossible for young players to figure that out and get good at it over time? Absolutely not. I don't think it takes all that long for them to figure it out. Maybe a year before they're comfortable there. But that's the only scenario, is if you're starting a young QB like that has no experience doing it, that you would run your offense this way, especially with the personnel that you have up front. I just don't get it.
Well, how much of the problem then is coaching on the offensive line? I feel like we've been hard on Grubb coming out of college. Maybe we should also be hard on Scott Huff coming out of college and not having coached professional offensive linemen, because one of the things that stood out to me hearing Stink talk in his interview was just how many things that a professional offensive lineman should be thinking about on any given play.
When I walk on the line of scrimmage, one of my first thoughts as an offensive lineman is, where can I not get beat? Because I'm going to take that away. And then ultimately, like, what's your best move in a critical situation? What's your go-to pass rush move? What have you gotten the most sacks on? Because 9 times out of 10, that's the move you're going to throw. So let me set to take that move away, and therefore I'll react on everything else. When you get a lot of penalties as an offensive line, what it tells me is you're out of position. You're either out of position because you don't have good feet in your hands, or you're out of position because you're dumb. And you don't understand where your help is. You don't understand how to use people's body presence. You don't understand how to funnel people where you want them to go, how you invite people. And so there's so much more nuance to it, and there's so much more of an education. Hey, I'll tell you this. When I played in Denver, I knew every drop of the quarterback and every timing of each route based upon the route combination that was called. So I knew when I could be aggressive and run block a 5-step drop. I knew when I had to play a 5-step drop like it was a 7-step drop because it always came with a couple of hitches. I knew when I could attack things. I knew when I couldn't attack things based upon the routes and route combinations. So it's so much more intricate than anybody thinks or anybody really knows. And the communication is so important. Having continuity is so important. But really understanding the game is incredibly important. And that's why good offensive lines play the game from the neck up more than anything else. They really are connected that way, and they really understand, where the problems are and how to avoid those problems and how to be, a team that basically eliminates as many one-on-ones as possible through playing together and using your help accordingly.
And so I think the funny quote in that is you either have good hands and feet or you're dumb. But I think he gets more toward the aspect of not functioning well above the head. And I think that's where the coaching part of it comes in, because I don't think our Seahawks offensive linemen are dumb. And I think they have to have good enough hands and feet because they made it to a professional NFL caliber level that they have those tools. That's why they get drafted where they do. And most of the guys on the Seahawks offensive line, relatively high draft picks. So I think it takes that a different kind of mindset then to instill to have these guys working together.
Yeah. And, Stink touched on a few things within that answer. You talked about the hands and feet. And yeah, I think about anybody who makes it to the league and makes a 53, they've got good enough physical skills to be a mediocre player. To take it beyond that, then mentally you have to be above and beyond your peers around you. And to be below that, it's either a mental deficiency, which I think that's tough to say about any of these guys. None of them seem like stupid dudes. And we've seen Tomlinson play decent in other stops. Charles Cross has been trying to hold it down as best he can. And then Bradford, maybe Bradford just doesn't have the feet. Like he doesn't move particularly well, especially in pass pro. I think the mental aspect of the game in how bad the Seahawks have looked in that facet offensively, starting with the line, but trickling all the way down, that screams coaching. It was so sloppy. There was a graphic like that threw up in the third quarter. It was like 3 picks, 10 penalties, 5 sacks. You go down the line, and it was just a horror list of Halloween nightmare of offensive play. And this offense has been that way week in, week out. That's a coaching situation. Like, you do not have your guys disciplined and focused and knowing their job, play in, play out. And then to compound the problem, you've got a revolving door at right tackle, and then you've been doing the switcherooski at right guard all season. And I'm kind of okay with the switcherooski that they've been doing, because we saw, I think, Bradford's one of his better games against the Bills. And then, unfortunately, I guess it had more to do, well, according to Mike, it had less to do with Haynes and how he's performed as to what led him to be a healthy scratch, and more other things that they needed the positions for. He explained, he gave a reason why. It sounded fine, but it almost seems like they need Haynes in there then to get the best out of Bradford. Need Haynes to be in to get the best out. Like
Haynes needs to be active and maybe taking some snaps away from Bradford to get the best out of Bradford.
To keep him motivated?
Maybe.
Then put his ass on the bench.
I don't think Haynes is good enough yet.
Bradford's not good enough yet. We know that for sure at this point, right?
I think that if we're going to try and run the football with Haynes in there, Bradford has the advantage, at least in that, because I think Bradford's good in the run game. I guess if we're just not going to run the football, then yes, Haynes may as well be out there.
Yeah, that's I talked about this weeks ago. I was like, why are we putting in Bradford for the majority of the snaps when he's a better run blocker than pass blocker, and Christian Haynes is a better pass blocker than run blocker? So you put the other dude out there? There are so many perplexing things about this offense that make zero NFL sense that I just, it's mind blowing. And then you cap it all off with let's all stand under center, stop like a college offense, turn and look at the sidelines for a signal that I'm sure half the league has already figured out. And you do that 6-7 times a game. Like, I didn't go back and track to see if any of those plays were successful or not, whatever it is that they're getting into. But at the end of the day, like, there's a reason why NFL teams don't do that. And it, on top of all of it, it makes it look even worse on the film.
That would be something interesting to go out and track, because if it is leading to success, then it's a thing that if teams aren't doing it just because it looks too collegey, but we are having success with it, then I'm fine with it. I don't care how it looks. I care whether or not you have success. And the reason why they do that is because communication to the quarterback cuts off at 15 seconds on the clock. They want to get up to the line of scrimmage quickly, see how the defense is aligning. Now, the defense doesn't necessarily have to give it away, but I suppose you could go with whatever play you had called and go with it based on whether or not you feel like they're ready. But if you want to see what their alignment is, you're getting that relayed from the sideline, getting some kind of signal. That's why they're doing it. I just, like you said, I don't know if it's effective or not.
What it means is that you don't trust your quarterback to read the defense in audible.
There might be something to that. Also, I think that you get a little bit better perspective, though, of of being up in the booth.
A different one. I'm not sure that it's better.
Yeah, it might be better.
Look, I know there's, every all-time great quarterback that we've ever talked about, or even middling and better, all can look at the defense and call an audible. They can all do it on the regular. They don't need to have their hand held by some dude who just got to the league.
That's a good way to put it.
Geno should be able to handle it. Man. I'm so sick of him. Like,
you are going to give him time. You can't be sick of him yet.
I'm going to give him 2 years. Doesn't mean that I can't be sick of him.
Well, when you talk about how the two play together, of the offensive line playing bad, leading to the quarterback playing bad, one of the things that Stink talked about is just how that can work into a quarterback's footwork.
When your clock speeds up, your feet speed up. And, the timing of the offense is kept at the quarterback's feet. And when the quarterback's feet speed up, guess what? He's off. You're not going to be on time with the football. You're going to be ahead. And so then you get to the point where you're forcing things because things aren't coming open on time. And so I think the pressure has created this sense of Geno, because Geno's a very accurate, big-time arm talent, very accurate guy. I just think he's so sped up that he is forcing the ball. He's early where the receivers aren't open yet. And so then he's just making some bad decisions, throwing it into team meetings and such. So I think that's kind of what's going on with Geno because of the lack of continuity up front and the lack of protection that they're giving him.
He delivers that line so matter-of-factly, the delivering into team meetings. What he's talking about is throwing into triple and quadruple coverage. That's what he's referring to as a team meeting.
Yeah, which Geno isn't doing all that often. He's not just throwing it into bad coverages all the time, and especially for the volume, he's done a pretty good job of decision making. Now, with that said, he's talking about the feet and the timing and all of that stuff, and that is extremely true in a West Coast offense, which is exactly what Stink was in there with Shanahan up there in Denver and with a lot of the stuff they did in Washington when he was there before that. And it's 100% true when you're under center, play action, West Coast. It's way less true when you're in the shotgun because you can kind of just do a shuffle step, a hitch, and away you go. And the problem is he is sped up. And it's not that his feet are getting out of time. He's sped up and having to over anticipate throws because
it might not be open when it's open because I might have a dude in my face.
Yeah. He'll never have time to sit back there and wait for it to get open. Yeah, exactly. It's a disaster. So yeah, he's pressing hard and then you don't run the football on top of that. And so then it's all up to Geno with no help up front. And lo and behold, he leads the league in interceptions. Who could have seen that coming?
That's part of the problem with the volume is that, yeah, it's great for yards. Have we finally brought the Geno sucks people and the yards don't matter people together? Because
maybe.
Because man, if you're a yards are awesome person, then Geno must be awesome.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, those two people seem to be in the same camp often, right? Like, oh, he's good because he throws for a lot of yards. And they've seemed to have been a little less consistent in their ideas about Geno that way. No doubt about it. It's super frustrating. And it's super frustrating to watch people get on Geno. Like, we got on him after this game because, yeah, he was one of the biggest problems in that game. He can't turn the ball over 3 times. And, 2 of those are on him, in my opinion. But with that said, if you're looking at it on the whole of the season, Geno Smith has been a really good quarterback. And then you take the situation, the circumstances, and you add that into the equation. I can't understand for the life of me anybody who's like, he's the bum, he's the problem, he holds the ball too long, get him out of there.
Show us Sam Howell.
Look, I heard Hawk Blogger, I think, say it in one of his shows this week. Like, you want to put Sam Howell back there when you're giving up 7 sacks a game? He's like, I'm kind of morbidly curious to put him back there just to see, because you're probably breaking NFL records.
I think the people that also want Sam Howell out there just want us to lose. And that's part of the reason why you don't, especially as a young head coach, make that switch to lose games. Then you're losing the locker room, because then you're a loser. And you don't, as a young coach, you don't want to be that and look that way in front of your professional football players.
Yeah, and you lose the locker room because your message is inconsistent. So with your actions, you go in there and you get these guys to work their ass off all week and then lay it all on the line when they get out there on the field and lay their career on the line every snap of every single game because of the high risk of bad injuries in this game. And then you take Anthony Richardson and run him out there to start your season for however many games when you've got a competent dude behind him that looks way better in the games. I can't imagine how much better he looks in practice. That would be the equivalent of what Shane Steichen's been doing in Indy. That would be what Mike McDonald would be doing there. And there's not one veteran player in the world that takes you seriously as a head coach, especially when you're babyface. That gets over at that point.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. So as much as we may want a high draft pick at this point, as much as we might want to see how different it looks, 1, it's not going to happen. And 2, it's definitely not going to happen.
Well, look, and the whole idea of we want a high draft pick, like some people probably still think we have a chance to get to the playoffs and things like that. It's not mathematically impossible or anything. But
all the division is right there, and there's a lot of division games coming up.
You'd pretty much have to go 4-0 in division from here on out, I think, with the losses you already have under your belt in division and in conference. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, this team isn't going to go for a high draft pick this year. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be a 6 to 8 win team when it's all said and done. I'm guessing closer to 6. And that's how it's going to be.
Closer to 6. That's only 2 more wins this entire season.
Yeah.
Gross.
The offense is getting worse and worse and worse.
I'm optimistic. They fix it in the bye. They get things turned around and we come out strong. Let me be optimistic. Don't look at me like that.
You can be optimistic. That's totally cool. So, some of the discussions I've been hearing all over the interwebs and everything is about the idea of, are you blowing it up, keeping it together? What's your plan going forward, Brandon? And, obviously we have to see a whole nother half of a season here, but, I heard Staten talking about it, and that guy can't change things fast enough. I can't imagine that he keeps more than 2 pairs of underwear for longer than, 30 minutes a day, like as fast as he's ready to change things over and just get rid of things. And then, I've heard other people that are like staunchly, hey, yeah, we're just a couple players away and we'll be all right. Like, kind of curious where you're at.
I feel like the defense is trending in the right direction. I don't know if where would you necessarily change out on the defensive side that would make a ton of sense, other than, upgrading at maybe safety with Jenkins. But hey, maybe we'll get to see Kobe Bryant in the second half turn it on. If we get Rams game Kobe Bryant for the rest of the season,
yeah,
that dude's our new starting safety.
Yes, please. I'll eat all the words and thank you, Kobe. Yeah, do that.
Defensive line's been getting pressure. It really is. It comes down to the offense and the offensive line. Left guard, center. I feel like those are the biggest areas for improvement. That you have youth at the right guard spot, and so you better hope that one of those guys works out. I feel like they can get around the youth aspect of right guard if they have competent center left guard play. Right tackle, see Abe. They sound awfully optimistic that he could come back in the Niners game. I'm not holding my breath. And then JSN DK, like when you think about blowing it up and changing things, what are we talking about here? You want to draft a quarterback at some point, yes, because you're either going to get a veteran who is in that same type of position, like Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. You're looking at those guys. I guess the next generation of that is what? Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Desmond Ridder, who's floating around out there still, like hoping that one of those guys pulls it together after 4 or 5 years in the league, I guess. Well, Sam Howell, I guess, falls into that boat too, which is why you picked him up in trade.
Kenny Pickett or Mac Jones.
Or a veteran that's nearing the end of their career. Like if a team gets a high draft pick and they're getting rid of one of their vets that's currently on another team, it's just not a great place to be in. You want to be able to draft relatively high, and until you have to be a bad team to get into that position. So until that happens, you're relying on those other options. I think Geno's going to be the best option for the next couple of years. It doesn't make any sense to me to trade DK for extra picks on an offensive line that isn't valued anyway, and then is going to be young, unless you're going to find a team that's willing to part with an interior offensive lineman for DK, like a good one and a pick swap, similar to the Max Unger, Jimmy Graham trade. And what are we talking about then here? Then he has more time to throw to JSN, but Tyler's going to be gone soon. I feel like
1,000 receivers everywhere.
I don't understand the blow it up mindset. I'll be honest.
Okay. I thought about this a lot, and maybe I'll change my mind even again over the course of the bye week here. But if the defense can, continue this trajectory going forward, I like the pieces there. I think you keep it together. I think you make a change of safety. I think you get a real deal nose tackle, and, all of a sudden you're cooking.
Yeah.
If Ryan Grubb has a completely different plan for his second year, that's one thing. If Mike McDonald looks at it and says, nope, you're gone, that's another thing. If he's going to try to run his system going forward in a second year, that's a third thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if
it's the third thing, then I think K9 has to be on the trading block.
I think they're all on the trading block. Like, if this offense performs this poorly with this personnel, get all the picks. Get all the picks, because why would you pay a running back a second contract? You're not going to do it. Why pay
why pay DK a third contract? Yeah,
it makes zero sense. I'm actually after these last couple weeks in this first part of this season, and this has nothing to do with DK the person, his behavior on the field, his production on the field, anything like that. I think he's fantastic. And any team would like to have a DK Metcalf. It's time to trade DK Metcalf this offseason and try to fix this offensive line, because it doesn't matter. Like, pay DK Metcalf. You got CeeDee Lamb problems. Like, okay, you just paid CeeDee Lamb a ton of money and he's putting up nice numbers and your offense stinks and you can't run the football. What's the point?
But I also look, you have to pay your offensive line something. You can't be league worst, which is where they're at right now. But you know what? They aren't going to be. Everybody points to the salary part of it. This team's not going to be league worst if you re-sign Charles Cross. Mm-hmm. You know, that's going to be a significant bump when it comes time for him to get paid. Abe Lucas, I'm not sure if you pay the guy at that point then, just based on health issues, because a significant investment there. Who knows how long you're going to get. And I guess they're paying George Fant a decent amount of money to be a backup, but his health issues seem to be about as bad as Abe's for as much time as he's been out on the field.
Yeah, unfortunately, this year hasn't gone well for him health-wise. We really needed it. You know, rotating through 3 different dudes so far at right tackle has been bad. And then, you know, Jarrell was as bad as he's been this entire year against the Rams. And again, this is against rookies. This is against rookies.
I just look at other teams and their abilities to turn around offensive lines through free agency and getting okay dudes who are out there. It can be done. And so I think that that's the better route than blowing it up and drafting, which we've seen over. They've spent a significant amount of draft capital on bringing guys in. I think the blowing up strategy is where you're wrong, because if you're using that then to get draft picks that you're going to use on the offensive line, then no thanks. But I guess if you're using it then to free up salary cap so you can bring in free agents that are even mediocre, then okay, you might have me interested.
I don't think you get anywhere just signing a bunch of mediocre free agent guys that other teams don't want.
On the offensive line, I think you can get by. I think you can make it work.
I'm done getting by on the offensive line. Like, that's not the identity of this team that Mike McDonald says that he wants to have.
The Bills' offensive line is made up of 3 dudes who other teams didn't want.
Fair enough.
The Rams' offensive line made up of a couple dudes and some draft picks.
Mostly draft picks. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you think about how most of these teams are built. They go out and they get themselves a franchise left tackle in the draft. You look at the Colts; those aren't a bunch of dudes that they just went and signed somewhere. The strength of their team, they went and they drafted those guys. I look at the way that the Chargers are going about it. Like, they go out and get Joe Alt, and all of a sudden they can move people.
You do have to pay guys, though.
Absolutely.
So maybe
absolutely.
The thing is that mediocre offensive linemen make a pretty decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe you want to put Damian Lewis in that mediocre offensive lineman category. That guy got paid.
He got paid, and John didn't pay him. And I mean, kind of leads to the John Schneider talk all this week, Brandon. Like, last offseason, he throws Pete Carroll under the bus and says that we underachieved. How are we achieving right now?
We expected this to a certain extent with a young coaching staff.
High risk hires, high variance hires, and boy, does the team look exactly like that.
We saw a massive jump, though, in the defense just in this past week, with Ernest
Agreed.
Jones having 1 week under his belt and then comes out and is like great looking.
Yeah.
Apart from a ball bouncing off his hands that he should have caught, but
should have. Vilma with the funny statement there. You know, he's got linebacker hands, and I can say that. It's like, yep. Yeah, you totally can. Look, I definitely am a believer in the idea that somebody, I mean, that was a great pickup if Ernest Jones turns out to be the type of linebacker that makes Mike McDonald's defense go, because his background in linebackers, we saw what a difference it was when they brought in Roquan. They're in Baltimore. I do believe that he needs to have that dude for his stuff to work. And if Ernest Jones can be that straw that stirs the drink, then they can start to draft over time here, starting with Knight in a couple other guys. You'll bring in linebacker free agents are a dime a dozen. So you can find guys that, kind of fit your scheme and that sort of stuff. And he gets to build that room. I have a lot of confidence in the defense being able to continue to stack good performances because of that Ernest Jones move. And, one of the things that I find interesting with the blow it up or keep it going argument is I think John Schneider already told us what our plan is next offseason going into this trade deadline. Like going and getting Ernest Jones, going and getting Ray Robertson Harris. Like he hasn't just sat on his hands. Like he's making moves to get things better now.
And they didn't give up anybody.
Not really. Jerome Baker.
Well, I mean, you did that because you're getting Ernest Jones. So
yeah. And Baker's not good.
They had an opportunity to trade guys. Shoot, I brought up K9's name. And when you see Chuba Hubbard getting a 4-year, $33 million contract extension with a max value of $37 million, it immediately makes you think, okay, is that K9's got to be north of that, just considering that he has like all the stats Chuba Hubbard does with one fewer year in the league.
Could you get K9 at 4 years at $35 million?
Or 4 years, $40 million? If it's a little above that, a smidgen?
Running backs are cheap compared to all the other, premium positions. And I do think that you can give running backs, the one contract after the rookie deal. I think is when you start getting into that third contract stuff is where it starts to get super sketchy for backs.
As long as they're good. And like they have to be real good.
I mean, I think we've all seen...
Chuba Hubbard is kind of on the borderline of is he good enough to do that? Because they just drafted a dude this year. Like what's Carolina doing?
No, I would not have paid Chuba Hubbard. I mean, he's a fine player. It's like,
I look at that and I go, man, you could pay, one of Seahawks guards that much and be real unhappy with it. That's that's a 4-year Laken Tomlinson contract.
Right. So is it going to be John Schneider who's making these decisions?
Oh yeah.
This offseason, do you think?
Yeah. As much whining as fans may put out there about offensive line issues and that being the majority of the problem, I don't think that ownership makes a change now. The idea of going, because generally a general manager then wants to pick their coaching staff. And unless you're saying we're going to blow it all up, what would have to go wrong for you to say after 1 year, the Coach McDonald hire is over, that was such a bad decision by the general manager that you're blowing everything up?
Yeah, I think like Mike McDonald would have to go to the, Tacoma Mall and like get 3/4 naked and do a lap dance on top of Santa. Like, just something worse than Urban Meyer somehow. Like, I think that's what it would take. Cause, as of right now, I don't think he's done anything that is
see him doing anything near Urban Meyer level.
Right. I had to go pretty extreme to get it past Urban. Maybe he starts just kicking Jason Myers all the time just for the fun of it. I don't know.
Well, if he misses that many more extra points, maybe that would be okay.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, what do you say we get to the second half of the show?
Oh, no, there's one more thing.
Oh.
You know what it is?
What's that?
The Rams. Okay, now we can get to the second half of the show.
Yeah. Had to be the Rams. Had to be the stupid Rams that were going into the bye week. That a loss makes me that if you flip flop it and we lose to the Bills, I feel a whole lot differently this week. I feel less annoyed.
Oh, 100%. This hurt my feelings way more than if it had been the Bills game.
Maybe then John Schneider isn't taking it quite so much. Because it's, of course, the Bills, they got MVP Josh Allen on the team. Like, that's the game you expect to lose.
Oh, look, when it's not going well, when I think, and I maybe you and I are included in this too. So like not trying to place us above this critique, but as fans, I think there was a large subsection that was like, oh, when you get rid of Pete, you get another dude in here, like, look out. Like, we could be NFC Championship game pretty easy. And to have it be unbelievably uneven and to lose as many games as you've had going down the stretch here, finishing off with the Rams, yeah, the pitchforks are going to come out.
I think it's because that game was winnable. Because, the only thing that got me on the Pete train was the continuing losing to the Rams and wanting to change that out. And this was the first opportunity. And then to whiff on that first opportunity when it was right there.
It was right there. And I really wanted to see Pete one more time this year because I felt like, the team was organized for the most part and played a certain way in terms of not beating yourself for the most part. And I just thought with a little bit of defensive trenches, which they went after this offseason, I thought the defense could be a lot better. Turns out it sounds like maybe you needed a linebacker as well in there. But I think.
Well, we hammered on the interior defensive line and linebacker the entire offseason before Pete left.
I know. Yeah. And the year before that, and people were getting mad at me. It was like, well, that's what you do. And I think this team is probably 2 wins better to this point with Pete. Not to say that, Pete's way better than Mike McDonald at this point in his career. Like,
I think 1 win. I think they still lose to the Rams.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. He pulled those sort of things up.
Sean McVay has pocket kryptonite for Pete Carroll somehow.
That's true. It is true.
So we're still only 1 loss down. It's fine.
Does it feel fine, Brandon?
No, it doesn't feel fine, but I am excited about the defense though. That legit got me excited. The fact that 13 points in regulation, like that has me excited moving forward.
It should, man. They were playing fast.
And good Kobe Bryant has me excited.
It's the last place that I'm going to get fired up about. I was really excited about Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams having nice games and Ernest Jones filling in behind him and looking good. I like the consistent pressure they were getting on Stafford. I know they didn't get him to the ground, but they
were moving him around, and that is not something that we've seen a lot of against the Rams. And that's what got me so excited is that, we finally got Stafford on the move, throwing it low or throwing it high, that because he was having to move around.
Yeah. And Kyron Williams held in check. The first time that's happened all year in terms of any of the running backs that we have faced. I think there's a lot to get excited about. A lot of people killing Reek for this last game.
Yeah.
Some good and bad there. Look, I've made my position on Reek fairly clear. So I can understand why people get frustrated with him at times.
They have effectively taken him out. Like, we haven't had him exploited in the run game, though, like we saw consistently last year.
Nope, just in the bubbles.
Just in those. So, and that feels like something like you should be able to at least tackle him for those.
He can't. It doesn't. I don't know if it's can or won't, but it won't. He ain't doing it. Like, that's fine, I guess. I don't know. Then overall, he's had a good season in coverage. Last week was tough.
Well, another one crazy catch that you don't see a ton of. And then, he had that one in the Bills game too. I think because it was back to back, getting beat on just like really good catches.
Yeah.
And then one that he shouldn't have given up, where he just got deked toward the inside and
got spun.
All right.
But I'm excited about the defense too, man. I am. This is the first time it looked like Mike's stuff was coming alive, and I think it's going to be exciting moving forward.
So we'll have to see. Let's get the offense pulled together in the bye week, come back, rally throughout the season, get a couple wins against some stupid NFC West teams that are now ahead of us in the division.
Yeah, if we're going to do that, it's going to be without Abe Lucas because I'm going to continue to pull a DCH and reverse jinx this into happening. So.
Until he is out there on the field.
Yeah.
He could come in handy against the Niners, but we'll get into that next week.
Yeah.
Niners playing Tampa this weekend.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game.
And
Tampa's
then,
up and down. I mean, we're kind of in the same boat. They're just hurt more on offense, I think.
Yeah. Well, and they played the Chiefs tough. That was a fun game to watch.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, didn't watch it, so I can't speak.
That's fine. You just nod your head and take my word for it. We've done this co-hosting thing for a while. You tell me how right I am, and we move on.
Oh, I'm not going to take away exactly how right you are, because it's fantastic just how amazingly right you are about that game. I'm just saying that I can't speak to it because I just didn't watch it. So, but you're still right. All the rights.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals, despite being 5-4, they are they're actually the underdog at home to the Jets.
This has to be just public money that makes these Jets lines so wiggy.
They had one good game, and now they're the gambling of the darling of the gambling world.
Yeah, no, I'd be taking cards all day there. Cards with points.
Well, I suppose we'll have to get into some of that in our pick show. When we do get into our pick show, though, how do you like this game? LA Rams against the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football.
I think somebody at the league scheduling office has a personal vendetta against me and wanted to ruin my Thursday night this week.
Monday night.
No, gross.
But I'm ruining your Thursday night by telling you. Yeah.
Yeah. Ew.
Gross.
That's what I think about that.
Game. Ew. Rams only favored by 1. The way that Tua has been playing, I think that Miami they might be able to take it to the Rams.
If the Rams win this game, the Dolphin season is over. Over. Write them off over.
Well, they're 2-6 now. So, yeah.
I know.
They have no chance.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get more into that with our pick show. Maybe Saturday night. We haven't scheduled it out yet, but that sounds
I don't know. We're taking our time with the bye week this week. Yeah.
I needed some time after that game.
Oh, me too, man. Yeah. And there was other world events that happened in there too that we had to deal with. Yeah, it's just,
I mean, probably not that important, but there were other world events.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were definitely Seahawks Rams world events, way down here, and then, firewood. That's my
firewood.
Yeah, that's my pride.
I got some of my garage cleaned earlier this week, so that's one of the highlights of my week.
You and me both, brother.
Also a highlight when we have our support from our members of the flock. They went to getintheflock.com. They're helping to support the show. Any amount you support us at, you can even support at the free level. You get notifications if you go to getintheflock.com. And that way, no need to refresh your podcast app. You'll find out when we're posting shows, finding out when we're posting other types of messages that we send out directly to our supporters, like when we did our get-together for the Bills game. Now, hopefully next year, we pick a game that our Seahawks win. That's one of my goals. But, it's always fun to get together with our members of the flock, and that's what we do on game day in our Discord, which $3 and above gets you into that. 90 and above gets you credit as an executive producer of this show. Those folks are DCH, Brian Shaw, Ryan Peterson, our live executive producer, JC Schilling and the 313th, Jake Burdine coming in with a $300 donation, his 2024-25 Better at Life donation. But since he comes in for the whole year, I'm giving him 3 months of executive producer credit.
Heck yeah, man. Appreciate that, Jake, and appreciate all you guys as always, even through some trying times here at the beginning of this season.
I should give Jake extra executive producer credit, in fact, because he used our seats during the Bills game, and we lost that one. I feel like there's a little bit of emotional damage that goes along with that, and so I add on to the executive producer credit to help balance the scales a little.
Right, try to help heal the Hawker a little bit there.
Yeah. I also feel bad because Flocktimus and his son went back after the Bills game and then used our seats for the game against the Rams. I thought it was about to be awesome, and then it wasn't.
Golly.
So now Flocktimus Alpha is 0 for 2.
Oh, 0-2 on the year, man. It's not earned either, man. He needs a little more help around him.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if our next game, like, do we send Flocktimus and his son to every game until the Seahawks pull out a home victory to turn it around? Like, I feel like this almost is resting on our shoulders at this point. I don't know which games we have left this season, but we might have to go there.
I feel like we can't mandate that. We're going to need some consent there. But if Keith could just get a little protection up front, man, I think he'd be good. I do.
Consent goes a long way, though, when you're giving away free tickets.
I agree. They're good tickets, too.
But yes, there also has to be acceptance on the other end. That's for sure. But we need to get.
You need to do something, man.
We need to get his son his first home win.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. Gotta have that experience in the memory banks, right?
Yeah.
To override the bad ones.
Exactly. Have you stopped by Guaranteed Barbecue there in Smeltersville, Idaho here recently, Adam?
I will be shortly before Thanksgiving.
Oh, there you go. Thanksgiving specials. We need to know, Garen, what do you do on Thanksgiving at Guaranteed Barbecue? Like, if I know that you're probably closed on actual Thanksgiving Day, but anything special around the holiday that you do? I need to know.
Oh, I guarantee that it's better than anything that I would come up with. And I'm actually wearing my Guaranteed Barbecue hat right now as we're recording this show. Yeah. Right. It's sharp.
I like it. Yeah, it's how come I don't have one? I got a shirt.
I know. You had a choice. You just chose poorly. I mean, the shirts are sweet. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get a hat next time. I'll pay for my hat next time I go through there. What do you say we get into some Pick'em League standings and welcome in our Overlord, Evie. Dear underlings, the Seahawks may have lost, but I feel I am a winner, as you all picked them to win, and we don't have to shame anyone or hand out any sanctions. Today is a good day, apart from the Seahawks losing, that is. Well done to 22 of you who got 12 picks correct, and the 4 of you who were within 2 points of the tiebreaker. I would go for this week's winner as show me your TDs, as if they had been allowed to kick the extra point. They would have been the closest, but because it was overtime, they didn't. However, if you have other rules I don't know about, Brandon, I will accept your counsel. That's a tough one. I think we go with Evie's ruling. I do too. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, that was fair and just.
Overall, Wirehawks is in the lead with 95 correct picks, just ahead of 3 teams with 94, and then 7 more with a further pick back on 93. Dad had a bad week. He only got 9, although he was angry at himself, I think. We were away this weekend, and he kept checking the scores as we were out and was happy as the Falcons were beating the Cowboys. However, when we got back to the hotel, he checked the pick page and realized that it was showing as having picked the Cowboys, and they lost. He was adamant he had picked the Falcons. I swear he was nearly in tears, but that may have been how much money my sister and I had just spent on junk. In the Brandon versus Adam mini league, Brandon had a good week, scoring 12 correct and boosting him to 83 correct picks. Now 3 behind Adam, who had a nightmare of a week with only 8 correct, leaving him on 86. Weekly, it is now 5-3 to Adam with 1 tied week. I have been thinking, and I feel there should be something riding on the head-to-head mini league. I will get my thinking cap on and come up with a prize/forfeit for the winner or loser. Have a great week. Go Hawks. Love, Evie.
Hey, go Hawks. Love you back, Evie. And I enjoy that thought process there. Tough week for me, but look, man, I just like to toy with your pick 'em emotions, and I just wanted it to be close enough to make you feel bad.
All right. Well, I appreciate the effort. I thought you were going to put that in earlier and allow me to catch up in previous weeks, but, it might have been time.
It was time. Mid-season, yeah, just enough to give you some false hope and then crush it.
I wonder how far off I was from having the tiebreaker. If everybody was in the boat for 12.
Yeah.
Well, Thursday night football, Adam. Have you seen the score yet?
I have not.
All right. Cincinnati at Baltimore. Baltimore favored by 6 points.
Baltimore.
I'm going to take Baltimore too, even though I am looking at the score. It is Cincinnati 14, Baltimore 7. But
okay.
Lamar playing well. They got the ball back. It's the second half. They're only down by 7. I think the Ravens can pull this one out still.
Yeah, I have faith in that for sure.
They're a good team, man. I hear a lot of MVP talk thrown around with Lamar. Already a 2-time MVP. And, he plays very well during the regular season.
Oh, he really does. And honestly had a decent postseason this last year. I honestly think that the MVP voting public, whoever has the MVP votes, I think this is going to end up getting into, Brady, Jordan, Mahomes area where they just stop giving him MVPs because they're like, it's going to be Josh Allen this year.
Lamar, you have 2. Josh doesn't have one yet. He's playing well enough. It's time to, LeBron, like how many league MVPs does he have?
Never forget the year that Karl Malone was given the MVP over Michael freaking Jordan in his prime still.
Well, we do have, I did see Adam, for those folks who want to be a part of the mailbag, go Hawks at SeahawkersPodcast.com. Going to get into some of those questions. We need more though. Like, is this thing on? Is this, do I need to tap on the microphone? Yeah. Go Hawks at Seahawkerspodcast.com. Send in your mailbag questions. That's what we're going to do next week.
Yeah. And I don't want to have to do research. So make life easy for us lazy podcasters. Come on.
Although if I were going to do research, you've got me intrigued by this looking at the sideline stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we see it a little, but not a ton.
Probably 4 or 5 times a game. So it might be a little bit more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And like, why it breaks the continuity too. Like, why randomly do it throughout I don't know. Whatever. We've already.
Is it situational?
I don't know.
I don't either. But you definitely recognize it when you see it. And I know fans have noticed it because they're like, what are the players doing? Like people who consistently just watch NFL football and don't watch college football, they're confused by it because they're like, I've never seen this before.
Right. Why would you have grown men who know how to do their jobs, like just stop doing them and then look over to somebody else to tell them how to do their job?
But if they are getting an advantage, I do want to know. Yeah,
me too. I meant to look at it before we got on the pod today, but I forgot to watch that thing as I was rewatching the game and mark it down. So,
well, and then once you get one game in, you're going to want to go back and go, well, how consistent is this?
Yeah, I won't want to do that. I can tell you right now.
There you go.
I might do it going forward. How about that?
Okay. That does sound a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious. Like, I went back a few games with the snap count thing, but that's also just...
That was good, by the way.
That was just easy. You click a couple buttons to pull that up.
That's true.
There's no dudes looking at the sideline checkbox.
Yeah, an NFL pro, they don't have a checkbox for rinky-dink college bullshit.
Catfish!
Where dudes look at the sideline for no
catfish
reason button. Yeah,
that might be a feature we asked to get put in though.
Yeah, and I want them to word it correctly too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, take notes. How to do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better this week is for fan-sided, and honestly, you don't even have to read the article because the title is a slap in the face to anybody who looked at the Bears this year coming in and was like, really? This is the title. Everybody except the Bears saw the Matt Eberflus implosion coming, including Caleb Williams. Most
catfish!
Catfish!
Including?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, I scanned the article. Don't care. The thing is that all I heard all offseason was how the Bears are a playoff team. They're going to be so good. It's the greatest situation to ever happen to a rookie quarterback in the history of ever. Matt Eberflus would be good. They brought in Shane Waldron, and he's going to get the most out of the guy. And blobbity, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? The Bears are delightfully mediocre, as we all knew they would exactly be. Or not all. Like, a few of us, like, I don't know, this guy who was talking about it all offseason thinking that this was insane because their offensive line stinks and they're going to have a rookie quarterback with a terrible offensive coordinator. Like, sounds a lot like our team, except for the rookie part. So that's fun too. But at the end of the day, fans sided. What is this revisionist history crap? Everybody saw this coming except for the Bears. Get out of here. Do better.
It seemed relatively obvious. And in fact, they were the consensus favorite for worst to first.
Oh, yeah.
Despite being in a division with the Packers and Lions.
Yeah.
That made 0 sense.
Exactly. Yet I heard this chatter from everybody in the world on the interwebs. Like, come on.
My do better this week. It's for John Schneider, Adam, because everything that happened this past week with the Rams, it has us all pointing the finger directly at him. If all he does is make a couple different moves in the offseason, put together an offensive line that's protecting Geno just a little bit, then we beat the Rams. We're not all fired up this week, and John Schneider doesn't have to feel my wrath. Do better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know what the hard part about it is, though, Brandon, is that you and I are just dudes who talk on the internet about football, right? Like, I mean, I'm not particularly bright. You're a pretty smart guy, but like, you know, I mean, we're just dudes in Montana.
We're not NFL caliber mindset at doing football things. Like, we just talk about it. We just have watched it a long time to recognize some things.
Right. And so if my dumbass can figure that out in the offseason and point it out and it gets ignored and we suck because of it, like, it's unbelievably frustrating to watch somebody as smart as John Schneider struggle with, like, the easiest of stuff.
Well, and I think it doesn't all have to fall on John Schneider either. Like, there's a whole scouting department of dudes. Like, this is their job to go around and identify talent and suggest to John that these are the dudes that we want as Seahawks football players.
Well, if I'm a scout for the Seahawks, right, and I know we're picking middle of the first round and, you know, got second, third round picks, all that stuff, right? I'm scouting offensive lineman. I'm like, hey, John, we could take this offensive lineman here. And with a first round pick, we could do that, or even a second round pick. We could get this guy at least, you know. And John Schneider looks at you and goes, "Why are you scouting these dudes at the top of the draft? Guards don't matter. Start scouting guards at the end of the 6th and 7th. Even as a scout, you can't help anything because the philosophy is terrible from the top."
I guarantee you that if you're a scout, one, you know your boss well enough that you don't even start looking at guards until the 3rd round. Because why would you do that? You'd be wasting your time.
Yeah, you're not getting any brownie points for it. John be like, that was stupid. Who drafts guards early, you know, and tries to build in the trenches? That's for you know, people that played football in the 30s. Like, this is fantasy football time, baby.
But you just have to find better 3rd round guards is what I'm getting at.
It certainly would help. Yeah.
If you're playing with a handicap, then you still have to, you know. It's like in golf. When you each have your handicap that you're playing to, you still have to outperform it.
Yeah. My handicap's inabilities, so it's hard to outperform. But
I don't know. You were a solid bogey guy.
Yeah. I'd say, yeah, solid bogey guys, probably fairly.
So,
I mean, at one point, I had the handicap down to single digits. I was in the, 9.
Okay.
8 or 9 at my best.
Yeah. I think at my best, I might have been 5 or 6.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You've got a better short game than I do. My short game's terrible. Always has been, always will be.
All right.
Just like the Seahawks offensive line.
On to Better at Life.
All right, man. My Better at Life than Skip Bayless this week, Brandon, is for all of yous. All of yous out there, all of yous Americans that are listening to this. Congratulations. There was no Civil War the last 2 days. No immediate Civil War. I'm very thankful for that. Thanks for, keeping it together. Appreciate the lack of war amongst brothers. It's good. It's good for our deal. And I'm happy about that. So Americans better at life than Skip Bayless.
Mine's kind of on that track, too, because, yes, we went through the Super Bowl of political events this past week. And, hey, I watched other communities like ours, our Seahawkers podcast community, other online communities out there that aren't necessarily politically motivated that just end up devolving into politics. As a listener, you might be surprised to hear this, as much as we all agree that the Seahawks are the greatest team to root for. And not every one of our listeners all agree on the same politics. And so I know it's weird.
But there's clearly a right answer. It's my answer. Like, I don't know how everybody doesn't see that.
But recognizing that and just knowing that, I've Facebook friends with enough folks that I see differences. I'm just really glad that our community didn't get into that, because one of the great things is that we can all be pissed together at the same thing, losing to the Rams. I'll be happy together. The same things, like we're going to beat the 49ers the next time we play them. And that's the nice thing, the nice unifying thing about our community. So to our great Seahawkers podcast community, you are better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, except for libertarians. Libertarians are for Sam Howell to start.
That's definitely correct.
Not true.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.